Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
Today, we are doing our voted upon episode for Black History Month. Our Patreons got to vote on this one, and we went out of the box, I guess, a bit. I just tried to find some characters that I did not know that much about that were black, and wanted to kind of dig into some of their best stories. So I put a bunch of them up on the poll, and the one that won was the character that won is Mr. Terrific, but it's the storyline from the JSA that I specifically put up. That was the trade is titled Black Vengeance. We will talk about whether that is correct for this trade or not, or this story arc. But it is basically a time travel story where the JSA from the mid-2000s goes back in time to save themselves and family members and stuff from a time-traveling Nazi that's going around and killing them so that they will never become the Justice Society.
Yeah, or even be born.
Yeah, even be born, but also to stop the old Justice Society from doing anything to inspire those kids. So there's like a twofold plan where you're going to stop the old guys, kind of like Watchmen. Basically, the beginning of this is the opening of Watchmen, where they're like, all the heroes are banned from, fighting and crime and, working in America, unless you unmask. It's also the premise for Civil War.
Yeah, it's always the government's go-to. Like, okay, you know what? If we can control you and you take off your mask so we know who you are, then it's cool.
That's okay. So, yeah, that's like the premise for this. But we really wanted to focus on a scene that I heard about, because I typed this in to Google, and I was like, I typed in black characters fighting the KKK in comics, and I found that in this storyline, Mr. Terrific, a.k.a. Michael Holt, goes back in time, him and the JSA travel back in time in the 50s, and he fights the KKK and beats the fuck out of them. So I was like, oh, that sounds fun. And then the name of the trade is called Black Vengeance. So I was like, oh, this is obviously, and they fight a Nazi. Like they're fighting a time-traveling Nazi. So I'm like, that's why it's called Black Vengeance, because they're going back in time, and Michael Holt is the star of this thing or something. That's what a lot of the premise, or like all the synopsises said for this too. So like they made it sound like he was like way more integral to the storyline and the title. But he does have his own issue in the middle of this whole thing. So we're going to focus on that. It's not as much as I would have liked, but sometimes that happens when you randomly pick storylines. So
yeah, and again, when this is we had several we threw out there. This is the one that got picked as the winner.
Right.
So don't blame us, blame our patrons. No. We appreciate our patrons for voting. That's how you guys get to choose one of our episodes every month. You become a patron.
Yeah.
And so we're either way. This story is a very interesting one, and it definitely has some ties to Black history and some some horrible events that get kind of rectified in an interesting way that we'll talk about. And then, so I say we get into it.
Yes, well, but first, let's thank our patrons.
Yes.
Thank you, Hoku, Otaku Mike, and Christian.
Thank y'all.
We appreciate you very much. You keep the lights going, and you're our favorite fans. So so thank you very much. And if you would like to join our Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, where you can sign up for different tiers and get different goodies for those tiers. But you also get, or everybody gets, all those tiers get an exclusive podcast that we do that's only on the Patreon, and you get to vote on our second podcast of each month. So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, all one word. Patreon. So anyway, this is the JSA. Now, this just happens to be perfect that this is the first time we've ever covered the JSA. And now finally they have been on screen for people to see. Now, not everybody saw Black Adam, but the JSA was in that movie. People know who Hawkman. They saw the commercials at least.
Yeah.
They know who Atom Smasher or at least what he looks like. They know who Hawkman is. They heard the words Justice Society. So I'm hoping that people are familiar with this now.
Get it enough, yeah.
Yeah. But basically, the Justice Society is the Golden Age, which is comics before the 60s. That's what they call it. It is the Golden Age Justice League, because the Justice League wasn't a thing until after the 60s. So, and that was like supposed to be a revamp of the Justice Society. So, the members are very, they vary a lot. There's a bunch of members of the Justice Society, but in this book,
feels like they just kind of let anybody in there sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like
it's not as picky as the Justice League.
Yeah, there's some people that didn't appear in the Hawkman movie, the Black Adam movie. Like for instance, there's a character named Our Man. There's the old Green Lantern, not Hal Jordan, but his name's Alan Scott.
What is it? What is it? Remind me.
His weakness is wood.
Wood. That's right.
His weakness is wood. I don't understand it, but I've never read an actual old Green Lantern comic, so I don't know how that works.
How
is it like someone hits him with a baseball bat?
Oh
like,
no!
Wood,
my only weakness.
My only weakness. How did you know? Yeah, and then Our Man, you might be able to guess from his name. I didn't put this together when I saw his costume. He's got a little hourglass around his neck. His powers only last an hour. So, like, probably the most useless power thing you can.
Unless he times it right. Otherwise, he's like, oh, man, guys, I got 5 minutes left. Y'all got the rest of this battle?
Well, if that, like, time-traveling Nazi, is fighting for longer than an hour or appears at 59 minutes to, and
I'm going to have to sit out.
Yeah,
guys.
Okay, guys, I got to go. So, Our Man is in it. Dr. Midnight, who's a blind superhero, which I'm like, I thought Daredevil was like the first blind superhero, but I guess Dr. Midnight was because he's from way before that. So, Dr. Midnight's blind, but he can see in the darkness. So, that's kind of cool. Then there's a character named Mr. Terrific. There's a character named Starman. There's Power Girl, who's like Superwoman, basically, is what she is. And then I think she's actually like a clone of Supergirl.
Yeah.
From Earth 2 or whatever. So like that's her story. I think. I don't know. There's been lots of different Supergirl histories, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And our main character that we follow through this whole thing, she's kind of like the audience surrogate, is a new member of the Justice Society from 2005. That is known as Stargirl. Now, you might know Stargirl because she had her own CW show, and that was fairly popular. I don't know. People watched it. It was on for more than one season, so that's better than I could say for Swamp Thing on the CW or whatever. But I guess that was on DC, or DC Infinite.
You didn't say that with any bitterness in your voice.
Not at all. Not at all. So, but yeah, so we kind of start off with her. She's telling us about her day, like fighting crime, and I like this because this is one of the few characters, like she's a teenager. She's kind of like Spider-Man or whatever, except unlike Spider-Man, her parents and everybody know that she's Stargirl. So like when she comes down, she has like a nice family. We're like, oh yeah, she's got an annoying brother, but when she goes down to like eat breakfast with them, the dad's like, oh, how was crime fighting?
How was crime fighting?
Yeah. I just thought that was like a cool dynamic. So we see like her little like how tired she is from fighting crime at night and having to go to school during the day. And then we cut to 1951 where we're seeing the HUAC committee, which is the what does that stand for? The
I didn't.
HUAC is the oh man, I can't remember what it stands for. It's like it was a real thing that happened in the 50s. You know this, John, right?
Yeah.
Senator McCarthy. Joe
McCarthy? It's about seeing if you're a communist.
They're trying to see if you're a communist.
Are you a card carrying communist?
The Un-American Activities Committee. That's what the House.
Yeah.
The House of Un-American Activities Committee. I think that's what it's called.
Okay.
Or I think that's what it stands for. So this is when a bunch of senators went around and I guess
accused
/ interrogated people for being communists
Possibly
communist. In all of the arts, generally is where it happened. So a lot of people got blacklisted in Hollywood because they were thought of as communists. I mean, this was like anybody who's anybody got this. Like even comic books had to deal with this, which is why like they had to go before the committee a little bit. I think it was a little bit later than this. I think it was 1954 when they went, but like same thing. It was still like part of the Red Scare.
Yeah.
And a lot of Hollywood people got like I said, blacklisted. I think even like Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz from I Love Lucy had to like, no, I swear to God, we're not communists. I hate Cuba. Like I will never play that music again. So yeah, it's just like stuff like that. It's pretty like annoying. I guess it's like a black spot or whatever on America, especially like right after World War II, where we're supposed to be like all freedom, yay, and we're awesome, and Nazis suck, and fascism sucks, and they're like, hey, what if we interrogate our free people in front of everybody and then blackball them? That's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So, but this is kind of like the Watchmen-ish thing to this, which Watchmen was from the 80s, so that, this is obviously like very similar to that, but because this is something that happened in America for real, other than the superhero part, and both of these writers, Jeff Johns, who wrote this book, and Alan Moore, are playing off that actual history. So we see that the HUAC committee has brought forward the Justice Society and is telling them that they have to unmask. If they don't unmask, they are going to, have repercussions.
Yeah, which I just want to point out is really funny because I would say that at least everyone here on the panel, they're just barely like the amount of their faces that are covered is like, you should know. I get that. I get
Black
in the
Canary
world.
doesn't even have her face covered at all, and neither does Jay Garrick or Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And this is the Wonder Woman. This is her mom. This is Hippolyta.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's not. That's why I was like, she looks different, and then they kept calling her Hippolyta. I'm like, oh, that's Diana's mom. So
that's cool.
Yeah. So I didn't know that she was the old Wonder Woman in the.
I didn't either.
So I don't know. Maybe that's some like retcon that Jeff Johns did or something, but I don't know.
Either way, and I get for comic books, it's that, okay, you put on a mask and you're hidden or whatever. But it's just really funny to hear them be like, take off your mask so we can know. And then you look, the next panel shows them all, and it's like, you can see their faces.
I can see all of your faces. So in the middle of this, as the senators are saying, like, reveal yourselves or else you're not going to be real Americans, Green Lantern's like, nuts to this. And he just uses his ring to take them all out of the courtroom. And then they go back to, I guess it's the Justice Society headquarters. Have you ever seen Hawkman look like this? He doesn't have his traditional like beak helmet on.
No, I was going to
say. He's got just like a regular yellow mask with like a hawk emblem on it.
Yeah.
On his forehead.
On the top. And it's like, it's almost like a luchador mask, basically.
Yes. But he has the same like wings and other outfits. So
yeah, but yeah, almost everything else is the same except for that mask.
That makes sense though, because you think like, okay, in the 50s, they're like, we can't give him like a bird mask. That's stupid. Let's just give him a luchador mask.
Yeah,
or like they wouldn't even think to give him a bird mask because that's too crazy. But yeah, so they have their little argument where some of the people in the society in the Justice Society are like, maybe we should. Think about revealing ourselves, and the others are like, no, we must not. So they have like that Civil War moment, but they don't go as far as Tony and
Cap and pick sides and fight.
Yeah, they don't do that. But also in 1951, we see that a man appears standing on a platform hovering. So obviously he's not from 1951, and he has an interesting dress, like the way that he dresses. He's got like all leather on. He's got an armband that has a D on it. It's very reminiscent of, let's say, a Hugo Boss uniform of some type, also known as Nazis. So this is a character that I never heard of. His name is Dagaton, right? That's how you say it?
Yeah, a Dagaton or Dagaton. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Dagaton. Sorry, Degaton. So I was like, okay, that's an interesting name for a Nazi. But this is a time-traveling Nazi, and if you've ever seen the show Heroes of Tomorrow, I think is what it's called.
Legends of
Tomorrow on CW. He is like the counterpart to Rip Hunter, who is like the time. He's not a time lord. What do they call him? Time something.
Time Master.
Time Master.
Yes.
I was like, I wanted to call him Time Lord because
yeah.
of Doctor Who, but he is a Time Master and he goes through time and fixes stuff that people mess up in the time stream. And this Nazi is the antithesis of that. He's trying to go around and fuck up the time stream. So he is specifically going to cause an event that is going to make it so America turns on the heroes because they're already on the edge, right? They're teetering. It didn't look good that they just vanished out of this committee hearing. They're not under arrest or anything from that. It just looks bad, right?
Yeah.
So public opinion is against them, or it's turning against them slowly. And Dagaton is going to cause some big event that no one knows about. And even the heroes, they know something's going to happen, but they don't know what it is later on. And they cause... he's going to cause this event, and that's going to make it so they go away. Just like in Watchmen, when all the heroes stop. But I don't think they become illegal necessarily. Maybe they would. I don't know, because what he has planned is pretty big. But if they got blamed for that, it might make it so everybody gets banned. But yeah, so he's definitely got a plan, and he's being evil. He's a Nazi, so he's doing bad shit. Then we cut back to Courtney, who is Stargirl. She's, like we said, she's eating breakfast with her family. It's great. She's got a baby sister that she loves. She talks about her stepdad and says, like, it took me a while to, like him because he's my stepdad. But, I see that he's a good guy. Yeah. He's just a good stepdad. He cares about me. And I really felt this. And I had no idea what was about to happen because Jesus Christ, in the middle of this breakfast, all of a sudden... Dagaton and
it's called his goons, the Red Morgue.
The Red Morgue. He sends the Red Morgue, who are his time traveling goons, to murder her family in front of her. Murder her too.
Murder them.
But yeah, and they literally do. They shoot Pat. Pat's like, so Courtney, how was that? Like it just dies, and then they shoot her brother, and then they shoot the dog, and then they shoot the mom, and they even kill her baby sister. In front of her. It's super fucked up. I was like, Jesus Christ. One thing I liked, Courtney, has her Stargirl staff, and she burns the fuck out of one of these guys. She takes his arm off and like makes it a skeleton.
Yeah.
I was like, that's crazy. Like that she could do that, but it makes sense because she's like young and not fully trained, and she's not like Batman or like I won't kill. Like that would be like a killing. Even if someone totally dissolved your arm except the bone, I think that would be a killing blow. Like, you would be in such shock from that. But either way, her family is surrounded and just shot. Like, and like I said, the baby's crying, and the guy's like poof poof, like right in the head of the baby. They don't show the actual shot to the baby,
but it's very much implied.
Yeah, it's very much implied, and they show all the shots to the family. So like, there is no mistaking what happened here.
Yeah,
and I was like, Jesus Christ, just like. Murdering everybody. I did not see this coming. And so she's, of course, freaking out because her family was just murdered in front of her. And then all of a sudden, a light comes out and a spaceship appears and the door opens and who's standing there but Rip Hunter. And he's like, come with me if you want to live, basically.
Yeah.
He says, hey, they just got killed. That's not set in the time stream yet. Like you can change events that happen right away. So, like, let's go change it. That wasn't supposed to happen. Dagaton is going through and killing people and ruining lives of Justice Society members. So, he does that. She goes with him.
And woof, they vanish.
Yeah, they vanish. And he tells her what's going on with Dagaton and what's going to happen to the Justice League.
And it's pretty fucking crazy. He's basically going back in time, and he's like killing. Some of them he killed as like babies, so they wouldn't even grow up to be the hero.
Yeah. So like the ones that would be heroes in the 2000s, he's going back to the 60s and shooting them in their crib or killing their mother or whatever, so they can't have a baby. They're never born. So Yeah, this Degaton guy is super fucked up.
Yeah, like, let's be honest here, too. Like, a lot of the time, bad guys are like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go back and do this.
I'm going to buy some land.
And then there's like, yeah, it's about real estate and owning things. And, I mean, maybe you snap away half of the universe, but you don't, like, this guy's going back
this
and
guy's
like murdering people.
This is like Thanos if he was like, I'm going to kill half the universe. But without a snap, I'm just going to walk through every place and just shoot everybody. I'm going to skip every other person and shoot, with them with a bullet. That's
so it hurts too.
Yeah, exactly. Shoot him somewhere where it really hurts. He tells her about Degaton and then takes her to the new Justice League headquarters, the one from the 2000s, and to meet the other members of the Justice League, where he proposes that they all go back in time. They have to help. They have to bring the Justice. I said Justice League. Justice Society. I might say Justice League. I mean Justice Society. I'm sorry.
Yes, it is always Justice Society.
Yeah. He's telling them, you guys got to go back in time, specifically the ones that have counterparts, because there's all older versions of some of the current Justice Society. So, like we said, Hourman, there's a younger guy named Hourman in the 2000s. His dad was Hourman in the 50s. And then there was a Mr. Terrific in the 50s. And then there's a Mr. Terrific now. There was a Johnny Thunder in the 50s. There's a Hakeem Thunder now. That's a character I wanted to know more about, too. I didn't ever know who he was. And they're like, he kept trying to do something. He's kind of like Shazam, where he says a magic word and then
he's got and he's got a genie apparently.
Yeah, and his genie is the thunder
god or something.
Thunder god or thunderbolt or something. So he says a magic word, and this like magic genie who can like do wishes for him, but looks kind of like a lightning bolt man.
Yeah,
goes around and fights for him and shit. So
it was fun. It was cool.
I was like, this is such a 50s concept, though. Like, but yeah, so. He's got an analog in the 50s, and most of these people do. The ones that don't really appear in this comic very much until the very end, but we assume, I guess, that they're traveling with Rip Hunter trying to stop Degaton and his forces throughout time.
Yeah.
We don't see any of that. But like Power Girl, The Flash, Green Lantern, they don't really show up
until
the end. So
we should say Mr. Terrific is also he's basically the smartest member ever to be in the Justice Society.
Yes, we should say, so Mr. Terrific is, like we said, his name is Michael Holt. He is super, super, super smart. That's basically his superpower, is his brain, right? But what he did is he's like a tech hero. He's kind of like if Cyborg didn't die and like had to be rebuilt his body. It was like if he just had the technology. And he's like, okay, you know what? He's like Steel, who's an engineer, except he does it with like electronics.
Yeah.
So where Steel is welding, like John Irons is welding his suit, Mr. Terrific is like, let me get these nanites that I invented, and they will be part of my suit. So like,
yeah. So he's super crazy intelligent. He's got to definitely. He didn't say how rich he is, but he's definitely got to have some good money.
He's basically like Bill Gates money because he is a tech giant.
Yeah. And then he's also like he's super athletic too. He's like
he was a gold winning decathlon or decathlete or whatever in the Olympics.
Yeah, and he as the hero, he has these like we said, like he's got different little things that help him, and in particular he has, what are they called?
T-spheres.
T-spheres.
These little balls that float around and hover near him, and like they kind of orbit him in like a planetary orbit around his head. And as he walks, if something's about to attack him, they'll block it or they'll like attack their own, and help him fight and stuff.
Yeah,
so
they're cool.
Yeah, they're pretty awesome. I was like, I kind of want T-spheres. I'd walk around and these little orbs are floating around me and could beat the shit out of someone without me having to lift a finger. That'd be pretty awesome. So yeah, so the Justice Society of 2005 decided to go back in time to get the Justice Society of the past back together, because since the HUAC committee meeting, they've kind of lost their passion for superheroes. They don't know if they should do it anymore, and they're kind of doubting themselves as a hero group. So the goal is to get them back motivated to become the Justice Society once again. And one character that goes back in time with them is a character that we saw in the Black Adam movie is Atom Smasher. He has recently, I just actually happened to read this run or this little story arc that happened before this story arc that we did for this podcast.
And sir, you were talking about, you just read the Hawkman, right?
Yeah, so I read the Jeff Johns Hawkman run, and at the end of that trade, there's like a Justice Society story that ties in with Hawkman. And it just so happened that that is exactly what happened right before this storyline. So I was like, oh, I know what's going on here. But basically, Atom Smasher joined forces with Black Adam to take over Kahndaq from a warlord, which is kind of what happens in the movie. So I think they borrowed that a bit from the movie, or for the movie. But in the process, Atom Smasher killed some bad slavers, basically, people that were enslaving children. They were like, don't hurt us. And he's like, fuck you. And he just steps on them because he's a giant. And so that has made him kind of a pariah in the Justice Society. They kicked him out.
Heroes don't murder.
Yes, that is the line. So he's being called as well to help because there is an analog to his character back in the 50s named the Atom.
The Atom, yeah.
Now, this is not Ray Palmer, the Atom. That's the 60s Atom. This is the Atom that doesn't get small or big. They call him the Atom because he has the power of the atomic weapon, which makes perfect sense in the 50s, right? Like, this thing just came out. We're going to make a hero who can put that power in his hands. So literally, he has little atom symbols that glow on his hands, and he punches people, and it's like getting hit with an atom bomb, basically, in the face, which is pretty awesome.
That's awesome and terrifying.
I was like, that is way cooler than being small. I don't know. I don't know. But I mean, it makes sense. Like, if you're going to revamp it for the 60s, it's like, what if instead he's the size of an atom?
Yeah.
Also, Ant-Man. Ray Palmer was first, but, it's like, it makes sense on multiple levels. I like that, though. You could, like, reconfigure a character to be completely different, but have the same name, and it still makes sense.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. It'd be like if you're like Spider-Man, and then it, like, somehow made sense in another way, and you made that character later on or something.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, like, when he grows, like, the extra arms and legs. And
where he actually becomes a spider.
Like, basically a giant spider.
Yeah. What a bad story arc. Anyway. So, yeah, Atom Smasher joins the crew, even though he is, like, a pariah. Him and Courtney kind of had, like, or him and Star. I'm going to call her Courtney and Stargirl just so you guys know. But they had, like, a little kind of, she was interested in him, and he broke her heart when he went to go live in Kahndaq with Black Adam. And so there's a thing where they're always fighting in this run. But yeah, so they all go back in time. And like we said, they are trying to convince their analogs, right? So we start off the second issue of this story arc with Courtney going to talk to Ted Knight, Starman from the 50s. He's in like a loony bin, I guess you call it. I don't know. He's in some kind of home. I don't know. That's what they call it.
That's what they call it.
I don't know.
I know.
I'm going with the 50s term.
It's a gated place where he definitely is in there for something going on with his mind.
Right. It's a wellness center, they call it now, right? But, yeah, so she goes to talk to him. He thinks she's like some kind of illusion or delusion that he's having in his head, like because he's on pills and stuff, and he doesn't know what's real or not. And I thought this was kind of an interesting like introduction to him because he's not a hero at all here, and we're supposed to like know that, oh, he's a hero, but like she has to convince him that she's real for one, and that and then she has to figure out how to snap him out of his fugue state without like, or by the time they need him to, because also they have like 5 days or something before Degaton does whatever the hell he's gonna do.
Yeah.
So she's working on him, trying to convince him. Then this is the main story that like we were trying to read this for Black History Month. We find Mr. Terrific, Michael Holt, goes back in time to the 50s. You can imagine, as a black man, you go back to the 50s, and it's a little different than what you're used to in the 2000s. So he's going to try to talk to the original Mr. Terrific, who was a white guy. I guess the original Mr. Terrific is just a dude, right?
Yeah,
like,
Terry Sloan is.
He's just a smart guy. And I think I looked up the history of the Michael Holt, Mr. Terrific, and apparently he just knew about that hero and was inspired by him and be like, hey, if he can do it, so can I, kind of thing. So I'm smart too. So that's where he got the inspiration. And I think in past, they mentioned that, like, oh, in issue like 40, they met in the 50s as well. So like, or in the 40s or something. So they had gone back in time, or he had gone back in time before and met him. So this Mr. Terrific actually knows Michael Holt and knows who he is and everything. So, but they're on a train station and they're going, like, the train is going to Mississippi. I can't remember why. Oh, it's something to do with like
Louisiana, right?
Is it Louisiana? Oh, it's one of those two. I can't remember.
I think he's going into.
They're going to the south.
Yeah,
right? They're going to the south.
Yes, it starts in Pittsburgh and they're going south.
Yeah, and so he's following. What is? Do you remember what the guy's name is?
Yeah, Terry Sloan.
Okay, so Terry Sloan is the original Mr. Terrific, and Michael is trying to follow him, and he's going to the south. There's some kind of ransom that happens with his brother and his brother's kid and his brother's girlfriend, right? That's what something's going
like
on
that,
where
yeah.
Terry's going south for this stupid thing that's going on. And in the meantime, he's being followed, but not like creepily, but Michael's like trying to get his attention on this train station. He can't get his attention, so he just tries to follow him onto the train. And of course, the stupid what are they called?
Not the conductor.
The valet or something, or whatever.
Was that the no ticket guy?
Yeah,
What's his
no
name?
ticket. The guy that checks tickets, that guy. He's like, he lets the white Mr. Terrific on, but then when Michael tries to get on, he's like, hey, what do you think you're doing, boy? And he points to the sign that says whites only car. So then Michael's like, oh, yeah, I forgot. I'm in the 50s.
It's the 50s. Good
yeah.
Lord.
So then he's got to go back to the black car, and he gets on there. And I love that in the black car, everybody looks super pissed, the way that they draw them. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
You can kind of tell from the cars too. It seems like the white car is very much more spacious and there's more room to kind of
the black car looks like
food.
a bus. Yeah, there's booths and a table and stuff and wine and and the black one is just crammed in. It's like modern transportation now.
Yeah.
But back then, like in airplanes, you see old commercials in like the 60s for airplanes, and they're like, look, you can do all this stuff. I'm like, what the fuck? There was so much room on planes back then, and now they just like took all that room and put in an extra row wherever that room was.
Yeah.
Everywhere, and now it's just like sardines packed in a can. So, it's kind of like that. So the black car is much more like that, and like you said, we're seeing the different heroes go look at their people. So Atom Smasher goes to look for Adam, and he's seeing that the Atom isn't. He's tied up in some kind of weird mob business, he thinks at first, but it turns out the government is like blackmailing him so that he will like narc on the rest of the Justice Society. But Atom Smasher thinks, oh, like he's doing bad stuff too, or he's like had moral quandaries. Yeah, I thought I was the only hero that had that stuff.
So he's like, oh, it's like, yeah, it's part of something that can happen to us.
Yeah, it's not just me. Other heroes have gone through this. So, that's like the main thing that's going on with these, where the heroes are just trying to reconnect with their people.
And that's the thing, is that basically all the older heroes at this point, like we said, everything that's been happening on, and there's the Red Scare, they're basically like being made to feel like, well, maybe they are useless, or maybe they should give it up. And then especially with the little infighting that they were having about, like, should we do this? Should we not? So they're all pretty much on the ropes of like, are we going to continue being the heroes or not? And so all of the Justice Society from the future is like, trying to convince, as they meet up and or see them, is going to slowly try to convince them like, hey, yeah, you want to do this. And then also because of what Degaton is going to do.
Yeah. I don't want to die. And also, like, you're heroes. You got to do your hero thing. Yeah. So, one thing that happens is Courtney, when she's trying to talk to Ted Knight and say, like, hey, you're not crazy. I'm real. You have to come with me, and we have to get the Justice League or the Justice Society back together. The nurses come in, and they're like, who's this crazy girl? And they like knock her out, which I was like, oh, that would be the scariest fucking thing in the world. In the 50s or earlier, to be like imprisoned in a psychiatric ward against your will. you can't prove that you're not crazy.
Yeah.
If you say you're not crazy, it just makes you look more crazy. That's fucking horrible.
Yeah.
So that was actually like one of the. I was like, holy shit, what's gonna happen here? So yeah, she gets like thrown in a padded room after she gets like her weapons and shit taken away from her, and they leave it on that cliffhanger for the second issue. And then also, our man goes to who is he trying to find? I can't remember who he's like going to talk to, but he overhears some woman talking about Dagaton, and he's like, wait, what? Like, how do they know about Dagaton? And then it leaves it like hanging like that. So then issue 3 starts with Mr. Terrific being in the South now. He's taking the train all the way down. And I thought this was like a nice, like after reading Incognito last time,
yeah,
I was like, oh, this feels very familiar. This feels very true. So like, I know Jeff Johns wrote it and he's a white guy, but a lot of this felt real, like as far as what we read in Incognito. So
yeah,
like
the tone is definitely right here. And again, and they are in New Orleans.
Yes. Yeah, but I thought like, okay, it's a superhero book, but I definitely got the tone that was similar to Incognito. So it's good that they matched it, because sometimes you can kind of like sugarcoat it because it's a superhero book or whatever, and it doesn't quite hit home, or it misses the mark on some of these more poignant historical things.
That's true.
So
yeah,
I was happy it felt real.
The only thing that they would have probably held back was the use of like actual like language.
Right? They don't say any of that stuff. Yeah,
but they're very much like every time that Michael is like trying to go someplace that
everybody stops him. Someone puts an arm on him
and they're like, "Hey, boy,
this is the white section." Yeah.
They very
So Mr. Terrific, Michael Holt is still following or trying to follow Terry Sloan, old Mr. Terrific, and we're seeing like, oh, there's like this whole thing going on where there's a baby and he's trying to find. It's like his brother's baby, but his brother left town, and there's like this weird, what's it called, a ransom basically that the wife of his brother or the girlfriend of his brother is trying to pull for the baby. It's just like this weird, this thing going around in the background. It's not a bad story. I thought it was actually pretty interesting, but in the meantime, like, we're seeing Michael go around he keeps trying to like get into these like parties and shit that Terry is in, and no one will let him in. So he's like, okay, I got to do something about this. I will say the one thing that I thought was like, how come this kid isn't getting more shit for being black? But there's another black character that goes back in time with him. He's like a younger teenager, and his name's Hakeem Thunder. And he has, like I think we said, has the power of that Thunder Genie. And he goes back to talk to Johnny Thunder. And they're sitting in like a diner, not having any issues. And I was like, I think Hakeem would not be allowed in this diner. But they just like, for the story, I guess they're like, we need to have him talk somewhere. So he does get hassled by some guys.
Some socias. They do point out that his hair looks funny because he's got dreadlocks. So yeah, or are those dreadlocks or? Yeah, I would say those are dreads.
Yeah, I think they're dreadlocks, but they're kind of like shorter
cords.
Yeah, they kind of look like Static, like when Static from the show.
Yeah, definitely. It's very it does kind of look like Static's hair from the.
So that's kind of what's going on with Hakeem and Johnny Thunder. Like we said, all the other characters are meeting their other heroes and whatnot. But the best moment of this whole comic happens when
Mr. Terrific finally is like, I'm through with this. So he puts on his Mr. Terrific uniform and like busts into like one of the, like kind of like a back area of one of the clubs. I guess it was like a club, also like a part of a market place.
Yeah, I guess. Well, there was like, okay, so that's what's going on. He's following Terry because Terry ends up taking the baby and just running. Like, he's like, I'm gonna yoink, and he just like runs with the baby, and they're like, stop him. So he runs through like this mausoleum. I think it's like a graveyard that he's running through, right?
Then they what I was gonna say is just because he like runs through some like tries to slow him down, I guess, and he like hits over all these crab ice.
Oh yeah. It's kind of like an Indiana Jones scene where he's going through like the marketplace, and there's no guy with a sword, but it's lots of wackiness ensues.
But the Mr. Terrific follows him in through the one of the
graveyard.
The graveyard. Those big in New Orleans, they have the big ones that are all the above ground mausoleums because it's all below sea level.
Yeah. So Mr. Terrific is Michael is chasing Terry through this mausoleum, he sees what looks to be like a light or fire. He's like, well, maybe that's him. So he goes over there, and he stumbles upon a KKK meeting, and they're in the middle of doing their thing. And I love this. I just think, imagine. They even point out, like, that's a weird looking like suit you got there, boy. And like he's in like, I don't think we've described what he looks like. He's got a white and black like mixed in different patches and stuff leather suit
with like it almost looks like a leather like motorcycle jacket on top of.
He looks like he's got full leather pants, shirt, undershirt, jacket, everything.
Yeah.
And gloves. It's all gloves. It's all black and white mix of those two colors. Like you said, it basically looks like he's about to ride a ninja motorcycle or something. And he's got a big T that's blacked out on his face. So like the top of the T, it's a capital T. So the top of the T goes across his eyes, and the middle of the T goes down across his, down his mouth and his chin.
Yeah.
So in his nose, yeah. So it's a pretty awesome and imposing costume. I don't think you've seen this movie, but have you seen Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust?
No.
I think it's called Bloodlust. The second Vampire Hunter D movie. There's a big dude with a giant hammer, and he has the same face paint except it's red. And it's like a big T on his face, because I think it looks more like it's a little T because he's got a cross on his face because he's fighting vampires. But it looks like that. I was like, oh man, he looks exactly like that. So very similar to that if you've seen Vampire Hunter D, except wearing all leather.
Yes.
And no hammer. But he does also have little spheres floating around him, which I just love that these guys, they're like, what's your name, boy? What do they call you up north? And and Mr. Terrific's like, what'd you call me? And then the fighting ensues. And this is like my favorite issue of this, because they surround him and they have guns and nooses and everything. And, he's Mr. Terrific. He's a lot more capable than they think. So they surround him. He's got his T-spheres ready to go. They don't seem to notice that. I thought, like, surely they were going to be like, what are these?
What are those floating orbs?
This is the 50s. Are you an alien? You have fucking anti-gravity spheres flying around your head.
All they see is his color, and so they're...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they try to attack him, and he just beats the fuck out of them. Like, just handedly, no problem. His T-spheres take care of the guys with guns, so that like makes it so he can just take everybody on with fists and not have to worry about getting shot. But yeah, it's a pretty awesome scene. Where
it's pretty fantastic.
He's up like, I don't know, 15 KKK members. It's pretty awesome. So he even lights one on fire, which I thought was pretty cool, because like they fall backwards in their own fire, and then he breaks the nose, I'm assuming, of one of them through the mask. And this is a great shot. Best panel of this whole series is he punches the KKK guy in the face, and his jacket has the words "fair play" on his arm, because that's like the catchphrase, I guess, of the original Mr. Terrific. So he's paying homage to that. But like, it's nice that the fair play is punching this guy in the face, because he's not for fair play. Yeah. So it's just like a really good scene of beating up bad guys. You don't get enough bad guy beating up like real bad guys in comics too often. So, I felt like this was well deserved. a good show for Mr. Terrific, and you got to see him like shine for like a good like whole issue pretty much. There's like he was mixed in, but that chase scene to the end of this KKK fight scene was basically a whole issue, and I thought that was nice. But at the end of it, Terry, the old Mr. Terrific, ends up coming out of the woods and be like, "Oh, Mr. Terrific, what are you doing here?" Basically, and it's like, "Yeah, I'll join you." And so he tells them about Degaton and says like, "Oh yeah, we need to find Degaton." Now, what happens in the background, or what had been going on in the background, was the old, like the Hour Man, the young one from the 2000s, was looking for his dad, the old Hour Man. He couldn't find him, and that's why he kept going around trying to find anything about his dad. Turns out his dad was captured by Degaton, and he has set a trap for the young Hour Man. So, and this is like the most fucked up thing ever. I don't know, like the Courtney's family getting killed was pretty bad. But Degaton is torturing the old Hour Man by saying like he's going back in time and like he's pulling out moments from the past of this Hour Man's life that were important to him. And he's like, oh, you know your best friend that made you feel good that one day in class and then he was the only guy that would talk to you and it changed your life forever? Go kill that guy. And like he like, you know, tells his Red Morgue guys to go kill him. And then all of a sudden they go back in the past. And while Degaton is telling him, oh yeah, we're going to kill that guy, Hour Man all of a sudden forgets that he had that friend. You know, like he's just full of depression now in that area of his life, you know.
Yeah.
Like all memory of his friend just disappears. And he's like, please stop. And then like he's doing this over and over and over again. I'm like, this is such a fucked up thing. It's taking all the happiness from your life away from you. It's like if you had like dementia or some shit and you forgot everybody that mattered in your life because some Nazi asshole is going back in time and killing them. It's crazy. Well, this guy is like a really good bad guy. I felt like everything that he was doing was very, you know, immediate and needed attention.
Again, the point I make is that most of the bad guys have this long drawn out plan that they talk about. They monologue.
It never happens.
But this guy, I mean, this guy's getting, as shitty as it is, he's getting results.
Yes, exactly. But it turns out that the little hourglass that Hour Man wears around his neck actually disrupts Degaton's ability to predict the future. And the whole thing, like with him, is because he's a time traveler, he like knows exactly what's going to happen all the time because he's been in and out of time so often. So, but the hourglass apparently affects his knowledge of what's going to happen next. So the old Hour Man actually gets the jump, or sorry, the young Hour Man actually gets the jump on him while trying to save his dad. He's able to save his dad. In the meantime, Ted Knight is, I like this part. So Ted Knight has been talking about like, I need to see the stars. He can't see them anymore. It's like a thing that's like a motif that he keeps saying over and over and over. And Courtney, this is cool. Courtney actually escapes the padded room because no one's listening to her. She's saying that she's not crazy. And then all of a sudden the door blows open from her staff being used. And it turns out that Star Woman from the future comes and saves her. And we find out later that that's actually her little sister, which I thought was super touching. Like her little sister who dies is able to come back, and that's how like Courtney knows, oh, we succeed because that's my little sister. So we must accomplish our goal here if my little sister ends up becoming Star Woman and coming back and saving me. So it's like, you know, that whole like paradox of going back in time.
Yeah, is it gonna plan out or not?
Yeah, but I love the scene where she takes Ted Knight into like the night sky in order to show him the stars because he keeps saying he needs to see the stars, and she's like, "All right, I'll show you." And like, there's just them flying around in the middle of the night looking at the stars. It's just like a nice little moment, which I liked a lot. So, yeah, that's pretty much. Everybody, you know, by the end of this issue, everybody has met up with their counterpart and decided to go back to the Hall of Justice, where the Justice Society meets, and they're all back together again now. So we are ready to figure out what Degaton is going to do, and you know who knows that? Hour Man, the old one, because he's been tortured, and while he was doing that, Degaton was monologuing. Yeah, and telling him what was going to happen. So Hour Man and his son fill everybody in on what is going on with Degaton, and we find out that the plan is to kill Harry Truman, but to blame it on the heroes. So they're like, okay, we have to do something, but they don't know when or where it's going to happen. They just know they know the day, but they don't know like why it's going to happen or you know how exactly. So they show up at Harry's at the White House.
At Harry's place.
Harry's place, the White House. And the Justice Society is just standing on the lawn saying, like, your life's in danger. We need to save you. But, of course, the government isn't exactly friends with them right now. And so the military, like, pull the weapons. But Truman's like, hold on. Like, let's hear what they have to say. And right as they're going to say, like, you're about to get killed. Like, we're trying to save you. Fucking Degaton shows up and is like, exactly as I wanted. Like, you showed up exactly as I knew you would because I'm going to kill the president right now and then disappear and everybody's going to think you did it.
Ha!
My master plan. So, of course, there's just a giant battle. Rip Hunter showed up earlier, when everybody got together at the Justice Society Hall after everybody convinced their counterparts to work again on the Justice Society. We saw Hawkman, Hawkgirl. I think the Flash showed up. I think Power Girl,
Green Lantern.
Lantern.
No. Power Girl's about to show up.
Oh, okay, yeah.
She shows up during the fight.
So everybody else shows up except Power Girl. So it's just convenient. They were with Rip Hunter in the time stream or whatever. So, the fighting starts, and I liked this a lot. You got to see everybody kind of shine. It's just them beating the fuck out of Nazis and Nazi followers or whatever.
Yeah,
so,
all the Red Morgue.
Yeah, the Red Morgue. And so, yeah, it's really cool to see when Dagaton is sitting. He's just standing on his little platform, and he's like, oh, I know you're going to do this, and I know you're going to do that, and no one can touch him because he's one step ahead of everybody.
I do they're all fighting and hurting his goons fine, but then when they try to go up and attack him, he's just whoop. Yep. Moves out of the way, because he knows. He knows what's going to happen.
And even for, the Flash, when Jay Garrick, the Flash from the 50s, runs at him, he's like, ha, Jay, you think you can touch me? I know exactly what you're going to do. Even at your fastest, you couldn't even, come close to it. So I thought that was pretty awesome. He also has these little discs that he throws, and they electrocute people. So he throws one of those on the Atom, who, is all buff and hitting people with the power of the atoms. And, he actually makes, he actually pulls, I guess this would be what happens to Dr. Manhattan, or could happen to Dr. Manhattan, where, you overload him, and then he can't control his reaction, his atomic reaction. But, this sphere that Dagaton throws on Captain Atom, or the Atom, I guess his name.
Yeah.
Captain Atom's a different character. That's actually who Dr. Manhattan's based off of, is Captain Atom.
Captain Atom?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Very similar. But yeah, so he can't, the Atom can't control his powers, and he begins to, I guess, melt down is what.
Yeah, he basically starts growing this energy bubble around him, and he's screaming.
Yeah. So everybody's fighting while this energy bubble is growing, and it's pretty awesome. We're just seeing all the JSA beat up all these guys. It's a great fight scene. I like it a lot. And no one can really do anything as the Atom is about to explode until, and I wasn't exactly sure what happened.
So it's basically because one of the hours is the Hourman is here, instead of me fighting or whatever, Atom Smasher is take this.
Oh yeah, he said. Oh, that's what it is. Because the hourglass has those tachyons inside of it that can disrupt
time. Yeah,
the time thing. Will disrupt Dagaton's control over time.
Yeah.
He throws it to Atom Smasher. Atom Smasher breaks the hourglass in his hand, gets the tachyons on his hand, reaches into the time force field / atomic meltdown bubble that's going on around the Atom, and he reaches in and he takes the sphere off. That's what happens. So he's able to save the day by doing that. And Atom Smasher gets to redeem himself because previous story arcs he had, been a pariah because he killed people not on accident. He killed bad people. So
yeah, and then he also gets to punch Dagaton off of his little platform.
Yeah, he does a full giant hand punch in Dagaton's face because Dagaton can't see him coming now because he's got this tachyons on his fist. So that's pretty awesome. Dagaton actually disappears. He gets away, which I was like, wow, he actually escaped.
I'll get you next time.
Yeah. And he actually comes back a couple issues later. It was I knew this would happen. He just starts appearing randomly. It's a plan, just like I wanted. So I thought that was funny. But even the sister Stargirl, the one who's the baby who grows up to be Stargirl, she shows up and helps Courtney out a couple times in this fight as well. And that's where she's like, "You're Star Woman? Who are you?" And she's like, "You know who I am, sis," and then flies off. And so Courtney gets the reassurance that it's my sister, she lives. So this is all going to work out basically. And so they save the president. Like we said, Power Girl shows up and Hawk Girl show up, and they beat the fuck out of everybody. And Dagaton disappears; he gets away. But everybody else, all the younger heroes from the 2000s go back to their 2000s. And then this is very interesting. At the end of this, so Courtney goes back. She sees her family still alive. It's very touching. But Rip, is this Dagaton or is this
Dagaton?
This is Dagaton. Okay. Rip Hunter and Dagaton look very, very similar.
Oh yeah, I think they're like you said, like they're basically like the yin and yang of each other.
Yeah, but like sometimes when they're on the panels, I'm like, oh, that's Rip Hunter, and it's not. So I thought this was Rip Hunter at the end.
I think they just have different clothes, basically. Like
I mean, they have pretty similar clothes, except one of them has an armband and red hair, and the other one has reddish blonde hair and no armband. Yeah. So it's a little confusing, I'll say that. But he does. So this isn't as creepy or weird as I thought it was, because I thought Rip Hunter was like, I will get them. They do not know what I have in store, and I'm like, what? Like Rip Hunter's bad. That's crazy. I didn't see that coming. And I just thought, oh, they're building up for this like big ultimate betrayal or something. But no, it's Dagaton. So Dagaton's like, I will love to watch them die. And then later on, we do get to see him see someone die. And he's like, haha. He just appears out of nowhere. He's like, I told you I would see you die. And then like leaves. So I thought that was a good callback 3 issues later. That's fun. That's the fun stuff about reading comics. When they do stuff like that where they leave little cliffhangers and then they pay off later. I love that shit because it's like, oh, it's continuity. He did say it and he did
do it.
Yeah. So that is the end of this story arc. Now, like I said, I kind of thought there was going to be more Black Vengeance, as it's called, but we found out later that Black Vengeance, it's called that because the next storyline in that trade, which is the next 3 issues, is about Black Adam and people getting vengeance on him for taking over Kandak. So it's kind of mislabeled, I would say.
Yes, definitely. It was misrepresented.
What are the chances that the trade that has the same the arc where Mr. Terrific goes back and fights the KKK and Nazis is called Black Vengeance, but not
for that reason?
Yeah, but not for that reason. What are the chances of that? It's very rare. But either way, I think there was a really solid, like I said, 1 issue focus on Mr. Terrific's story here of him beating up the KKK in the 50s and what he goes through as a black man, especially seeing it from like the 2000s eyes going back into the 50s and seeing, having that experience.
Yeah, because he has several moments where he's like, oh man, I forgot about this. I forgot that this would be a thing.
Yeah.
And
he does mention like, oh yeah, I remember last time I went back, it was like this.
Yeah.
But he actually gets to beat up the KKK in this one, which I thought was a great thing to have.
Oh yeah, it was fantastic.
So yeah, that's the end of it. That's why we did this for Black History Month, because it's a focus on a character, or it's like a really good storyline focusing on a black character. At least partly. So
yeah, I feel bad, and we're definitely gonna have to make this one up a little bit, because this one didn't feel as strongly enough for Black History Month.
Yeah,
as we would have wanted.
Maybe we could do like the Black Panther one where because that's like 2 issues. I think it's a 2 or 3 issue run.
Yeah, where
he fights the KKK, and I'm almost sure that is more actual like focusing on Black Panther fighting the KKK the whole time. So yeah, why don't we do that? Why don't we do that the first issue or the first podcast of March? We make up for this by doing that one. But yeah, this happens sometimes. This happened last Pride Month when I was like, let's do The Authority, because there's 2 great gay characters in it that have a great relationship, and then we read the first trade, and there's none of that in there, and they only reveal that they're a couple at the end.
At the very end of that,
of the last issue.
later stuff that is really.
They have a very touching, amazing relationship for the rest of the comic, but the first 8 issues, they don't talk about it at all.
Which I will say, I hope and I assume, because of the era that we're in, that when they make the Authority movie, I'm sure that will be a big part of that.
One of the reasons why they picked the Authority, because that is a very front relationship,
Well, I'm down.
Besides them being great characters.
Yeah, and it's a really good story.
I would say arguably Midnighter and Apollo are the best gay couple in comics.
Yeah.
I would argue that. I don't think I've read anywhere near the story that, like, as good of a story as The Authority is with those 2 characters and that relationship, compared to, like, I don't know, I can only think of a couple, like, you got Ivy and Harley. but like there's no really like definitive. This is like their amazing storyline or anything. Where all of the authority is good, you know, like the entire Warren Ellis and I think Grant Morrison writes it or Mark Miller writes it for a while. All of that's good. So like, yeah, just read the whole 20 issues or something of the original Authority run and you're good to go, you know. So I just think like I can't think of another one that's like even comes close as far as storytelling and character development and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I actually like how that one came out in like 1999 or 2000, and it's like they build up these two characters like, okay, that's Superman and that's Batman, and then like out of nowhere, bam, they're gay, they're lovers, but like you've already spent 8 issues like liking these characters, so even if you were homophobic or whatever, you'd be like, I like these characters though. So now you have to grapple with, okay, I'm going to still read this because I like these characters and I can deal with that. You know, like, or hopefully that's what would happen. So I think that happened to a lot of people that hadn't seen that in a comic before. They're like confronted with it and they're like, I'm okay with this. And then they keep reading because it's such a good story. So, yeah. And I think this is kind of an older comic. It's from 2005. It's touching on issues that, you know, people say like these, I will say like people say there shouldn't be politics in comics, right? I will say I think there shouldn't be politics in comics if your storyline isn't good. You know, like we read the I think last year we read the Green Arrow, Green Lantern. And that to me is like too preachy. Like the story isn't there for what it is, you know, like for what it's trying to do. But if you have a good story, like I fully enjoyed every issue of this comic and was literally, because this is like comics at they're like most like monthly, I'll say, like, you know, like it's made for the month. It's not made for the trade. So every issue has a cliffhanger. Every issue's like, what? Like, you know, what's going to happen? I got to read the next issue. So I felt like that fully every time we finished an issue for this story arc. I was like, I need to know what happens. Definitely. So, and especially like, you know, the scene where Michael goes into the KKK meeting, it leaves it hanging right there. And you're like, what the fuck's going to happen? So, yeah, I thought that was really well done. And yeah, like you said, I wish I wish I wasn't misled by what everybody said about this one on the internet, but it did have some good moments that did showcase like the black struggle in history and stuff, and specifically with a black character. And I got to know who Mr. Terrific was, which I didn't really know that much about him. I know he's in like the new Flash books that I'm reading. I just knew he was like a smart guy, you know.
That's true. I'll say that about him and about honestly like 3/4 of the characters. And
even
and
Hakeem,
this for me.
Or is it Hakeem? Even Hakeem.
Yeah.
Hakeem got like I
he
was
didn't
like,
get as much play, but
I was like, who's this character? I want to know who Hakeem Thunder is, and why does he have a genie? Like I don't know. That's just like a cool thing. And there is no JSA book. Well, no, I'm sorry. There is a JSA book now, but there wasn't one for a while. So like Jeff Johns started writing a new one like 2 months ago or whatever. So
cool.
Just started coming out. But until then, there hadn't been one for 8 years or something like that. So it's been a while, and it seems like Jeff Johns is the only one who's willing to take on the Justice Society because it is so steeped in continuity and lots of characters, and they're old characters, and you have to go back and you have to read old comics, and that's hard, and you know,
but that's hard.
That's hard. I feel it. I mean, when we tried to read some of Stan Lee's stuff, and like some of those old '60s books, I'm like, oh,
yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, like some of that stuff.
I was happy that Black Panther's only 3 issues. Let's put it that way. When the one that we're gonna read for the first of next month. But yeah, so it's not as much Black history as we wanted, but there is a good chunk of this that is focused on a Black character and some Black history. So that's kind of fun, and I like that they throw that in the middle of just a regular story arc, going back in time, having hijinks and whatnot. So, and they fight Nazis. Those, you know, it's good.
That's always good.
Yeah, it's good to beat up Nazis. Anything else? Oh no, you didn't give your stuff. Yeah, so anyway,
I was like,
John,
and what did we think of it?
What did you think of it? What would you give it?
Overall, I was going to say for jumping, I'm going to go with, even though
I will say this, John jumped in without knowing like anything at all about these characters.
Yeah, no, seriously, I was going to say for me jumping in, not knowing 3/4 of the characters in this comic.
And of those characters, how much you just knew their names, right? You didn't know like.
Oh yeah, I didn't know their powers.
You're like, okay, Alan Scott, Green Lantern, check.
Yeah.
Flash,
and then
check.
even the couple of those, they were only in it for the very beginning and the very end. I have to say, it got me. Like I got into it. I wanted to know more. I will be honest. The first time I saw Stargirl, I was like, she's kind of weird, Captain America color looking outfit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm good. I'll pass. But then, I heard a little bit about the show, and then I heard a little bit about the background of the character, as far as like why she was created too. I was like, okay, that's a sweet, endearing thing. It's like, okay, and then she's in this. I'm like, okay, we'll read a little bit more about her actual powers, what she does, and then in the story, I was like, oh, she's actually kind of a cool like teen character. Like, I totally feel like I would read more of that.
Yeah, I'm actually reading her most current book, and I'm enjoying that. I haven't really read too much of her, but I think she was like a good avenue for a new reader. Like, she was your eyes, like because she's a young hero, just getting introduced into the Justice Society. So she's your introduction to this Justice Society as well, so.
Yeah, and I really like the duality of like the older, the original hero, and then the new one that's coming to like kind of like pull them up out of the muck of this. And I thought that was a really fun play on like. We've kind of seen that a little bit, but this is the kind of time travel story I do like.
Right.
I like being going like, no, you gotta shake off that. We gotta win. We gotta save the day.
You're a hero, goddammit.
Yeah, snap out of it. So I really enjoyed that. I like the bad guy in this too. Like I said,
great villain. I gotta
very
say,
good villain.
Like I said, I was hooked from the moment Courtney's family got murdered right in front of her at the dinner table. The second that bullet, the second that trigger got pulled for that baby, I was like, I'm in this. I was like,
there's one thing we know about Matt. It's that if a kid dies in the first couple minutes of a movie or a comic or a manga, he's in.
I'm in.
He's sold.
That means got him. These people are willing to go for it. All right.
They're taking risks. Okay.
Yeah, they're taking risks. This is not a Hollywood movie. Yeah.
And I really liked Mr. Terrific. I thought he was really fun. Character design and kind of like taking it from the old Mr. Terrific to this newer version, and having him be like, kind of like, I was almost gonna say Reed Richards as far as like intelligence,
right, yeah.
But or I was reading too. He's like kind of like the he kind of plays back and forth with Bruce Wayne, like Batman. They're kind of like not enemies, but like frenemies, I guess.
Yeah, they're
like adversaries. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. And because he's got a lot of money too, he's able to do a lot of stuff in the background. Although I think Bruce Wayne, because Bruce always figures out who everybody is, right? He buys the company. He buys the owning stake in the company of him, of course. But yeah, so like I liked all the characters. The art was wonderful in it. A lot of really cool splash pages in this. In addition to all of the like Alex Ross covers.
I really think that this is like the best of monthly comics that you could get. You know what I mean? Like, this is what you want. Like, it's not the best comic I've ever read, but it's enjoyable. The story's solid.
Yeah.
I want to pick up every issue, the next one and the next one. So, like, while it's not like one of those opuses, those like epic, one of a kind, things. It's like, this is what you want from monthly comics, or at least this is what I want.
And you know what? Saying that makes me think. I think you just picked out why this was probably misrepresented and why we got into it, why we did. Somebody remembered that was like scene. Such a cool scene in this.
Yes.
And the rest of the story was like, that's a time travel story. Meh, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And they remembered that, like, oh man, but it was really cool when Mr. Terrific kicked the shit out of the KKK.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like,
I could totally see
what we saw on like probably like, I don't know, 10 Reddit boards or whatever. That got transferred to like best of like black characters kicking the KKK's ass lists.
Yeah.
And so that's how we came upon it that way, because of probably how it had traveled down. Because again, this isn't getting a trade that's going to resell over and over again like a
I don't
Crisis.
Even think it's in trade right now.
Well, that's what I mean. But in
we
general,
had to buy these issues individually on Comixology.
Yeah, so. So it's not okay. So it's not like it's not getting a trade. It's not getting a Crisis event. It's not getting an in between event or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's probably why. But it's really it's all solid story, and like I wanted to read it all. I told you I ended up reading the next couple.
Yeah.
Just because I was like, oh, I'm curious. Like I saw Black Adam was weaved cool in there a little bit there too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like, okay, we'll check it out. So yeah, overall, I really liked it, and it was a solid story. I'm gonna give it a 7.
7? Yeah, I'm gonna give this one a 7 too. I think, like I said, this is like exactly what I want from monthly comics, from superhero comics. Like I want a solid story that keeps me interested every month, and I can't wait to read the next one, kind of thing. So. This is like the best of it. And that's why I go to Jeff Johns for a lot of that stuff. I love his Green Lantern run for that. It's just solid, like long form storytelling. And this is interesting because this is still before like trades really took over. So like he's not writing for the trade necessarily, like he's weaving in storylines from past things that are happening and the future things that are going to happen. He's setting up little things that are going to happen there. So I just love that, and yeah, I really liked. I want to know more about Mr. Terrific now. We need to cover him another time this year. I know he's got like his own solo series. I think, if not, I'll try to find like the best. Like this is him. We're focusing on him and what he does, like story. So, but I want to read more of his stuff. So. But this is what these things do. They pique your interest in different characters, right? Because you could read this and there's a lot of characters. There's all these old Golden Age and new new JSA heroes, and you're like, oh, I don't care about that one, but this one seems really cool.
Yeah.
Like I like these because it introduces you and it piques your interest in different ones depending on what you're interested in.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And Mr. Terrific definitely piqued my interest, so I think I'm going to go try to check some of those out. But I'll give it a 7. You give it a 7. If anyone wants to read this, it is JSA from 2005, the Jeff Johns run, and it is issues 68 to 72. So it's 5 issues long. It's a pretty nice, compact story. But you can't find it in a trade like that's for sale unless you find like a used copy of it. It's called Black Vengeance otherwise, but once again, that was the name that I was like, oh, it's about this because it's called Black Vengeance, but it's not. So, so yeah. Is there anything else we need to go over?
No, I'll just a reminder. If you wanted to sign up for our Patreon, you always get to vote on one of our in a poll every month to pick our second episode of the month every month.
Yeah, and then, also we get our exclusive episode, which is next week's episode on Patreon only. We're reading Witchblade.
Yeah, this was actually
for educational reasons only.
Yes. No, but this was a runner-up from a poll that we had. The last month's poll, we actually had a tie, so we're like, okay, we'll give everyone what they want, and we'll give. So we're doing that on the next one. So.
Yeah, so we had a tie between the Mask and Witchblade. So we did the Mask last month. We're doing Witchblade this month. It's all good all the time. It's going to be super fun. I can't wait to read Witchblade.
I remember covers of this as a kid and being like, whoa.
Oh, I remember.
What is this about? Yeah. And then, but then as a kid, open up and be like, oh, that's really wordy.
Yeah, there's a lot of words. So we'll see. We'll see how it is word wise. But the art, I'm sure, is spectacular.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll check that out. If you would like to check that out, definitely go check us out on patreon.com/Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, all one word. And with that, I think we're ready to go.
Yep. We'll see you on the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.